Okay, so we will get started with our presentation. So as I mentioned, my name is Laura Taryn, and I'm a member of the Fanshawe Cares Arrival Services team. And today we'll be reviewing everything you need to know about arriving in Canada. So a few brief announcements just before we begin. Oops, go back here a second. A few brief announcements before we begin. So everyone is muted during the session. We will allow some time at the end of the session for some Q&A. So please do hold on to your questions. We have quite a few people in the chat here this morning. So I am just going to disable the chat just for the presentation portion. Just to keep us focused, but at the end, we'll certainly open it up, and I warmly invite everyone to add your questions in the chat at the end. We also may have time for people to unmute themselves and share their voices, so we'll do that at the end of our session today. At all times, it is important to please keep any of your personal information private. Please don't share emails, phone numbers, in the chat, because we are recording this and we'll be sharing it on our Fanshawe International YouTube page. And as I mentioned, please do, we'll hopefully get any doubts cleared up by the end of the session today. So it will be a very informative time for you all. So what will we cover in today's session? So first of all, we'll be talking a little bit about planning for your arrival. We'll provide some updates on COVID-19 measures, which changed as of March 17th. So we do have an update on that. We'll review some important dates. We'll talk about the International Student Forum, which is a very important document I'm sure all of you are aware of, or at least have heard of, but we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. Then we'll talk a little bit about arriving in Canada, the documents you will need to bring. We'll talk about our Fanshawe Cares Arrival Services program and our shuttle service, what to expect if you're arriving with family members, and finally, we'll go over some important information around getting settled in London. Now, hopefully a lot of you have been attending our Fanshawe Cares live series, which kicked off on Monday. So that's being run by my colleague on the Fanshawe Cares team, Crystal Boyd. And I hope you've been finding those sessions and the guest presenters really helpful as you start to navigate your journey here at Fanshawe. So let's begin with planning for your arrival. So we had an update on Friday around COVID-19. So thankfully, we can now say that all measures related to COVID-19 have ended. So as of the 17th, there is no pre or post arrival test required for any person traveling from any country. Up until the 17th, there was a requirement for students traveling from Hong Kong, China, or Macau to provide a pre-arrival test. However, as of the 17th, this has ended. So nobody on this call today will need to worry about a COVID-19 test, which is wonderful. You do not need to show proof of vaccination, neither to the college nor while traveling. Quarantine after you arrive in Canada is not required. You no longer need to use the ArriveCan app, which was previously required for travelers. And finally, masks are no longer required. However, what I would say is if you do feel comfortable wearing a mask while you're traveling, it's always a good idea to help, control the spread if you are feeling unwell of any sort of viruses, COVID-19 or not. And always we recommend frequent hand washing, carrying a hand sanitizer, anything you can do to kind of make sure you arrive feeling healthy and safe. So if you are interested in reviewing details around traveling, I encourage you to visit the Government of Canada website. I'm going to share the presentation in the chat, but anything that's underlined in red in the presentation is a link. So this here is a link to the Government of Canada COVID-19 site. And it is important to always keep up, especially in the days leading up to your travel. Just double check the website and make sure there aren't any measures put in place or removed. As you can see, March 17th was a fairly recent change. So it is a good idea to make sure that you're reviewing the Government of Canada travel page before you travel. And if you do have questions, please feel free to email fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca at any time, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. So some important dates that you'll need to be aware of for the summer 2023 term. First of all is our arrival window. So between April 5th and April 30th, 2023, this is the time when we provide our complimentary shuttle service for eligible students. So this would be first-time, full-time students arriving as we support both single registered students with a shuttle service, and we support families with a transportation credit. So we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but the important thing to remember is that eligibility for our service is for those arriving between the 5th and the 30th, going directly to a location in London or one of our regional campus locations. We do have a deadline around the submission of the international student form, and that is April 12th, 2023. So you do need to make sure that you submit your international student form with a copy of your passport request, which means you've sent your passport away to have your visa pasted into your passport. Or if you've already received your visa and your passport, or you've received your passport back, you're going to upload your letter of introduction. So this is the document that you'll provide at the border to the border service officer who greets you when you arrive at the port of entry. Another important note that I've included here is that students should plan to arrive in Canada no sooner than 30 days prior to the start of their study period. So this is important for a number of reasons. It allows an adequate time for you to get settled here in Canada, but it's also in alignment with your More Care health insurance. So students are covered under early arrival coverage 30 days prior to the start of their study period. So since your term begins on May 2nd, your insurance coverage will start on April 2nd. So if you are arriving any sooner than April 2nd, you need to make sure you have arrangements in place for insurance coverage for any days that you're in Canada before April 2nd. So just important dates to make note of here. Okay, a little more information about the international student form. So this is required for every Fanshawe student, both level 1 students and also upper year students. So you'll sort of make it a habit of every single term, you'll submit this form. When you submit it this year, you'll indicate that you're coming to Canada. In subsequent years, you'll say, yeah, I'm here, I'm currently living in Canada. So there is a link to the international student form on the PowerPoint, which I will share, but it can also be found on the Fanshawe Cares Arrival Services page. So on the international student form, you're going to notify the college of your travel to Canada. You will upload a copy of your PPR or your study permit approval letter if your passport's already been returned to you. You will provide your flight date and your flight information. And it's really important that you provide this, particularly if you are using our shuttle service. Your flight number will be your airline initials, followed by 2 to 4 numbers. So that's always going to be the convention for your flight information. Sometimes we see students submit their booking number and they'll receive a missing information email letting them know, I'm sorry, there's an error with your flight information. So just always be looking for the flight number that's arriving to Toronto or to London if you're traveling into London. If you're unsure, you're more than welcome to email your itinerary to Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca, and we'd be happy to confirm that information for you. The other thing you're going to do is request our Fanshawe Cares shuttle service. Again, that is available between April 5th and April 30th. So you'll just indicate that. When we review and receive and review your form, we complete your shuttle service booking quite quickly. So you'll receive a response back within 48 to 72 hours with your shuttle booking. So we feel that offers a great peace of mind for you. And if you do have any questions, you're always welcome to get back in touch with us, and we're happy to clear up any doubts you might have. Lastly, you're going to provide your arrival information, which will include your address and your contact information. The reason we need your address is to provide a home drop-off through the shuttle service. If you submit your form and you don't have your address yet, what we would do in that case is we would book your transportation to the Robert Q Depot, which is located at 105 Warncliffe Street South here in London. And if you provide that information, then you would be responsible for arranging your own transportation from that location to your final destination in London. It is important that you submit your international student form by April 12th or at least 7 business days before you travel. Any changes submitted less than that time or less than 7 business days before your travel date, the changes are not guaranteed. So we'll always do our best to help with any changes you have. But if you contact us, right before your travel date and say, oh, my situation's changed, I need to change my address, we may or may not be able to assist you with that. So please do try to make sure your information is as final and accurate as possible, just to make sure we have a smooth trip for you. So little information on submitting your international student form. So you'll visit the Fanshawe Cares Arrival Services page to access the form. You're going to log in with your Fanshawe username and password. And if you do have any questions about that, you can always reach out to the IT service help desk, but your username and password will be the same as logging into WebAdvisor. Again, you're going to want to make sure all of your information provided on the form is as final and accurate as possible. Of course, we do recognize there are changes, and we're happy to accommodate those as much as we can. But the sooner you let us know, the easier we'll be able to make those changes and confirm them with you. So a little bit about the process. When you submit your form initially, you'll receive a form back to your FOL email letting you know that the submission was received. And then once the Fanshawe Cares team has reviewed your information, we will send you a final approval. And you're welcome to print this out to carry with you with your other travel documents. And if you've requested our shuttle service, you'll receive information on your shuttle confirmation number and the time that you're booked to pick up your shuttle. If you are traveling with family members, you'll receive some information about our family transportation partners and the process for our transportation credit. Again, I will review that in a bit more detail in just a moment. Okay, so some frequent Q&A we get around the International Student Forum. When should you complete the form? So all students must complete the form by April 12th with proof of their passport request or their study permit approval letter. You can submit it early, but you do need to submit by that April 12th deadline. If you've received your PPR or your study permit approval letter, but you don't have your flight booked just quite yet, you can still submit the form, but Fanshawe Cares would not be able to book your shuttle service until those travel plans are finalized. So if you don't want to use the Fanshawe Cares arrival services, do you still need to submit the form? The answer to that is yes. So we do require all students to submit the form before they arrive, because it lets us know about your intention to come to Canada and provides us with a copy of that PPR, just so we know that you are ready to come to Canada. You have everything you need to arrive successfully. Lastly, question we often get is, I want to come to Canada, but I'm waiting for my study permit approval. Can I submit the form now? And the answer to this, unfortunately, is no. So you cannot submit your international student form without proof of your passport request or your study permit approval letter. Again, the deadline is by April 12th. So if you know before April 12th that you will not be able to have your proof of your PPR or your study permit approval letter, I recommend reaching out to your agent as soon as possible, so that we can make plans for you. If you are not able to arrive or in Canada in time for the start of the term, we would need to work on a deferral for you to a future term. So if you can't meet that April 12th deadline, please be sure to be reaching out to your agent and communicating with our admissions team via VAS so that we know what your situation is and we can help you as soon as possible. So exciting part, arriving in Canada. So no, this will be a really great day for all of you, and take lots of pictures. It'll definitely be a moment you'll remember. So we're all very excited for your arrival, and we'll make sure it's as smooth as possible. So the documents that you'll need to bring, again, I certainly recommend visiting the Government of Canada website. But the basic key items you'll need to bring, I recommend keeping it in a folder or one kind of good place that's safe and secure that you can access it quickly. You will need a valid passport. You will need your visa and your study permit approval letter, which is what's returned to you when you receive your visa stamp. You'll need your letter of admission from Fanshawe College. Again, this can be printed off VAS if it hasn't been printed out yet. You'll need proof of funds available for your stay in Canada. This can include bank statements. It can also include a copy of your tuition receipt to show payments that you've already made to Fanshawe College. And this can be printed from WebAdvisor. And finally, any other documents recommended by the Canadian Visa Office. So when you arrive, you will be greeted by a border service officer who will be checking all this information for you and just verifying those documents. Again, I do want to make the caution, if you are arriving before April 2nd, you're also going to want to make sure you have the insurance coverage for any days before your early arrival coverage begins through MoreCare. So a little bit about our shuttle service. So many of you will be taking Robert Q, which is the shuttle service used by Fanshawe Cares. It's a really nice bus service, very quite comfortable, easy to pick up. And there is transportation instructions that'll be pickup instructions that'll be provided on your confirmation email with your confirmation number for Robert Q. So what'll happen is you'll go down to the ground transportation level in terminals 1 or terminals 3. This is the view from terminal 1, that it's the pickup at post P, and the ground transportation instructions for terminal 3 are provided as well in the email. So what'll happen is when you arrive, you're just going to either see an agent at the desk, and you can check in with them directly. If you're arriving after their regular service hours, you'll see a phone on the desk. You'll be able to pick up that phone and just let them know you're checking in. If you arrive early or late to your scheduled date or scheduled time that you're supposed to be picking up your shuttle, please just call in and check in right away anyways. If you've arrived early, they will allow you to board an earlier shuttle if there's room on that bus. If you're late, they will move you on to the next available shuttle. So please don't worry about that piece. We will make sure that you get to London or one of our regional campuses safely. So your shuttle confirmation email, a little bit about that. So the confirmation emails are sent to students once we have all the information that we need to book your transportation. So this would be your completed flight number, your arrival date and time, and your drop-off address if you are going to a home drop-off location. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't provide a local drop-off address, you will be dropped off at the Robert Q bus station located here in London on at 105 Warncliffe Road South. And they do have cabs or Uber service, or if you have a friend in London, you can always have them pick you up at that location as well. So it's a convenient kind of centrally downtown spot. Again, if you're early or late, report to the Robert Q desk and they will move you on to the next available shuttle. And finally, any changes to your arrival plans must be communicated at least 4 business days prior to your arrival. So did mention 7 days earlier. I guess the sooner the better is really the motto of the story. We do our best, even, we do our best to accommodate you at any time, but at least 4 to 7 business days prior, just as much notice as you can give us about any changes, we can get back to you with confirmed updates to your plans. So yeah, so keep in touch. Again, we're here to support you. We'll do all we can to make sure any changes are captured for you. So if you're arriving to the London International Airport, we do have a little bit of a different process. So students arriving to this airport, it is quite a small airport, and it is located right in London. So students that are coming to this location can access local transportation upon arrival. This may include hiring a taxi service. There's typically will be taxis outside the airport when you arrive. If not, there are phones located. There's a phone bank there where you can just pick up your phone and request a ride from one of the taxi services. Here in London, we typically work with Checker, but there's also Green Cab, Yellow Cab. Any of the cab services here in London you would be able to use, and there are representatives at the airport who can assist you with that as well. We also accept rideshare receipts as well if you do choose to use Uber, which is quite popular. And students arriving to London directly are also eligible for a transportation credit. Again, so that's transportation on your date of arrival. And if that's the case for you, you will be submitting your receipt to Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca, and we would reimburse your travel cost up to $100 Canadian for a single student or for families. Next, students that are arriving with family, as I mentioned, are responsible for arranging their own transportation. The reason for this is that families often have quite different needs depending on how many people are in their family, if they have any furry friends coming along, if they're traveling with pets. So for this reason, we ask that families do book their own transportation through one of our transportation service providers who are offering preferred rates to Fanshawe students. So you'll book directly with the transportation service and then submit your receipt after your arrival to Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca for a $100 transportation credit. So this is the equivalent value to the service that we provide for single registered students. And again, the eligibility requirement for this would be that you must be a first-time full-time student arriving in our 23S arrival window, which is April 5th to April 30th. To be considered for this, you must provide your full arrival address. So if you submit your international student form, transportation credit, you need to provide your full address. And you can send that to us by email anytime right up into your point of arrival. Okay. So next up, what to expect after you arrive in Canada. So we do have a little to-do list for you here. As I said, I will share this in the chat so you can click on any of these links. So check your Fanshawe online email account regularly. If any of you attended the Fanshawe Cares live series yesterday, you will have had that little bit of background on Fanshawe online, because that was our topic yesterday. So please make sure that you are checking Fanshawe online regularly just to keep up to date with any messages from your program coordinator or from the college. Just very important piece there. You're going to want to secure housing and update your local address in WebAdvisor once that's confirmed. It's really important that you update your local address in WebAdvisor, because if you request any letters from the college, we would want it to have your address in Canada on those letters. It's also important for things like applying for a social insurance number or opening a bank account. You're going to want to have your local address on a document when you're making those applications. You will apply for your social insurance number. If you have conditions for work on your study permit, you are required to have a social insurance number to work. Nobody is able to begin working until after your studies commence on May 2nd. However, the social insurance number does need to be processed, and we'll be running some social insurance number clinics at the start of term to get you started with that. More information is available at the link, but I would also encourage you again to keep your eyes open to your inboxes, because we will be sending you an email letting you know about our upcoming sessions. You're going to want to open a bank account. So there's lots of different options for banking, and we will have a number of banks that will be visiting the campus locations to provide information about bank accounts. What I would say is, to open a bank account, you'll need to provide kind of the same things that you provided when you enter Canada at the port of entry. And what I would be looking for is asking about a student account, which should be a zero fee bank account. And you're also going to want to just ask some questions about the services that you might need. So do you need a credit card? How many Interact bank transfers are you allowed? What is their other transfer policies? So those are the types of questions you're going to look for. You'll want to select a mobile phone plan and purchase a phone. There is some links there as well that you can check out that compare some of the different plans here in Canada, and your options for cards if that's something you're interested in doing. You will want to visit the Fanshawe bookstore to choose your book list. And so that will be an important piece for you. Some students do wait a little bit to check in with the program coordinator and see kind of what books are used when, but at least you'll have a good sense of what course materials will be required once you arrive. I also recommend you review the key dates of the academic calendar, make note of things like holidays, study breaks, because you can plan a little bit of fun around those dates, because as important as it is to make sure you're making your studies your first priority, it is important to get the most out of your student experience here in Canada as well. Make note of any important dates related to your study permit and passport expiry. It's important to stay ahead of those dates. You're always going to want to have kind of that 180 to 90 days kind of radar going at all times, just to make sure you're making any extensions that might be required in a timely fashion. Last 2 points, you're going to want to pick up your fan card. Your fan card is your Fanshawe student card that you'll use for a number of different things. If you're a London campus student, this will be your bus pass. You can also use it for printing on campus. Sometimes you might need it to access labs. It's a key card for certain labs. So very important that you pick up your fan card. And last but not least, you're going to want to attend orientation, which will take place on May 1st. So many of you, I'm sure, are already doing this, but we are running our 10-day Fanshawe Cares live series. It's ongoing between the March 20th to March 31st from 9:30 to 10:30 each day, covering a variety of topics. There is a schedule posted on our Fanshawe Cares or Fanshawe International Instagram and Facebook pages, so you can check out, make sure you save the date for certain dates that you may be interested in coming along and learning more. I think to get the most out of this series, I'd recommend attending every single session. It's just a great kickstart, and you'll really learn a lot about the college and the services that we provide. And you'll be able to make use of those services right away when you get started here at Fanshawe. So we do want you to stay connected with us, and the best way to do that is by following us on Facebook and Instagram. I also encourage you to follow the Student Union. They have a lot of really wonderful programs and initiatives and special days and events for students. So networking will become very important to you as you navigate your student journey. It's really great to learn from other students and their experiences. So staying connected within the Student Union is a great idea. So please do be sure to follow the Student Union on social media as well. Lastly, we have our contact information for the International Center. This information is available on our website, but I'll just draw specific attention to the Fanshawe Care, there we go. The Fanshawe Cares email address. I'm going to pop that in the chat as well. Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca. And this is a great resource for you if you are looking to provide any updates to your address, if you're looking for status updates on your international student form. If you have any kind of quick questions, we're happy to help at any time with those questions. Yeah, because we're here to support you and we want to make sure you're off to a great start. I've also included here some information around booking appointments with our advisors. So we do have an appointment link for international student advisors once you're in Canada, and also our outside of Canada, our recruitment agents as well. So if you need to book an appointment with anybody in that regard, you can do so using those links. This is also available on our website. And lastly, we do have all the arrival services information that I reviewed today. And that's available on our website as well. So I will put the a link to, just going to stop sharing my screen now. And I'm going to open up the questions because I always love hearing from everybody. We do have about 20 minutes for questions today, which is great. Okay. So just before we get started with questions, I am going to put the PowerPoint presentation into the chat for you all so that you have access to that today. Okay. Sorry, guys, just a moment here. Okay. All right, so just put that. Okay, so we'll start with Dr. Vishu. If you would like to unmute yourself, you're welcome to do so, and we'll answer your question.
Hello. Morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you this morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Okay. Sorry about that. Dr. Vishu, are you speaking now?
Yeah, hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Sorry about that. I hope,
Yeah,
was
no.
everyone able to hear me okay throughout the presentation? Okay, perfect. Just realized my my sound wasn't up all the way. So hopefully that was okay. So please go ahead with your question.
Hi. Is it mandatory that we need to have a Canadian number before completing the international students form?
No, you don't. So for what a lot of students will do is they'll use their phone number from their own country. When you arrive in Canada, there is at Toronto Pearson International Airport and at the London International Airport as well. There is free Wi-Fi. So a lot of students will just, on their first day of arrival, they'll kind of just use WhatsApp as an option for the kind of their primary phone plan while they're waiting to get a Canadian phone number. There is information on the document that I shared as well that has all of the links to different cell phone plans that you can look into. I do sort of caution students a little bit to prepare for this as a piece of their budget. Unfortunately, mobile plans in Canada do tend to be a little bit more expensive. So do make sure that you're reviewing the plans carefully so that you know you're getting the best option for you. And free calling through WhatsApp is always a really great tool that you can use to stay connected with family and friends as well. So Hopefully that answers your question about that.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Okay, before we move on to Mirgonka, I'm just gonna quickly go through and try to answer some of the questions that have been provided in the chat. I do see them stacking up a little bit, and I'm mindful of the fact that you guys do have a session at 9:30, so we'll go through those. So Agabor, you've asked, how do you access FOL? I can provide a link to that. There was a session yesterday that was shared. So, and that kind of reviewed all the basics of FOL, but I will put that into the chat. So basically what you're going to want to do is go to fanshawonline.ca. Whoops. Online.ca, and it will prompt you to enter in your Fanshawe username and password, same as WebAdvisor, and that will get you in there. And we'll be posting on YouTube the full outline, but there's also a chat feature for Fanshawe Online. So if you go to fanshaweonline.ca, you'll be able to chat directly with the FOL team and they'll answer any questions you might have. So where can you view videos from the previous session? These will be posted on our Fanshawe YouTube page, Fanshawe International YouTube page. So I'll just pull that up for you. Okay. Right, so you'll be able to look right on the page. There is links to previous sessions that we ran, but there will be a summer 2023 playlist that'll be created, and we'll be adding to that every day at the end of each session. Next. So Dacia is asking about meetings that are for London students and not Toronto campus students. So the Toronto campus is a really unique opportunity and it's facilitated through ILAC. So what I would suggest is continue to reach out to the representatives and follow emails that you receive from Fanshawe Toronto ILAC, and they will also be running information about getting settled in Toronto and the services that they provide. There is, I'll just provide their contact information as well. Just for our Toronto students. And if you do have any questions, they are more than happy to reach out to you for any questions you might have about that. Okay, next. So Navin's asking about providing arrival details if they're not requesting the shuttle service. So no, if you're not requesting your shuttle service, you don't need to provide an address. You do need to provide your flight number and the date that you're arriving, because we want to know when you're arriving to make sure you'll be here on time for classes. And it also allows us to confirm that you have your PPR or your study permit approval letter. So when you submit that, you'll receive a response from us that says, yep, your arrival is approved. And having that document that shows that the college has approved your arrival is also quite helpful, because that's another document you can carry with you at the airport. What will the weather be like in mid-April in Canada? From Varun. Really great question. So mid-April is our spring. However, in Canada, you sort of never know what you're gonna get. Some days we have really quite warm days. Some days, so you can kind of plan for it to be around the early teens in Celsius. So usually it's between, 8 and 14 degrees in mid-April, which is sort of, you're definitely going to want to have a jacket. When you're arriving, make sure you have closed-toed shoes so that your feet stay warm. And I always encourage students to bring an extra pair of socks in their bag. No matter what season it is, there's nothing worse than having wet feet. So if you bring an extra pair of socks, that's always a great idea, because if you step in a puddle, you can always change out your socks. How can we sign up for WebAdvisor from Gracia? WebAdvisor is automatically linked to your Fanshawe student account. If you do have questions about that, you can reach out to the IT service help desk, and they can provide some more information for you. Kriti is asking about changing the drop-off location for the shuttle service. You can do this simply by emailing Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca. Again, you're going to want to make sure between 4 and 7 business days prior to your drop-off that you're letting us know about any changes. We'll make that update for you, and then we'll send you a new confirmation email. Your confirmation number, if you've already received one, will remain the same, but your new confirmation email will have the updated shuttle address. How can you know the next intake for healthcare admin? So if you don't have your study permit approval letter yet, please do reach out to your agent, and they can work with our admissions team through VAS to get you registered for the next available intake. Should they drop us at our mentioned? So I guess this question here is asking about dropping off at a drop-off address. If you provide a drop-off address, be it your permanent residence in London or at a hotel, we will drop you off at that location. However, if you don't provide the address, we'll drop you off at the bus station in London, and then you'd be responsible for getting a cab from that location to wherever you're going in London or the regional campuses. Do I have the ID for Fanshawe Cares Live? The Fanshawe Cares Live series is available on our arrivals page. So I'm just going to include that in the chat. Okay, so if you scroll down and look under orientation, you will find the link to the chat. Just pop that there. Okay. I have quite a few direct messages. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the time as well. So Nestle Shan, sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. So you have 3 people, including your daughter. What I would suggest so your question is kind of specific to your situation. You may choose to go with Robert Q. You may also depend on, or you're saying here that you have a lot of luggage, and that's why we recommend some of the private car services. It may end up being a little bit, it's an easier process because they'll assist you individually with your luggage, which may be more beneficial for you. So I typically recommend for larger families, it does end up being cheaper if you go with one of our transportation services rather than trying to use Robert Q. Robert Q is ideal if you're traveling with, with one other person, that it kind of makes a little bit more sense. But once you start getting 3+, especially if you're traveling with children and you have a lot of luggage, it may be better for you to use Pearson limousine or driver's seat. And what I would say is just contact both services, let them know what luggage you have, what vehicle size they would recommend, and get a quote from them. And you can go with whatever service suits you best. The transportation credit is $100 regardless of which service you go with. Again, I have quite a few messages about asking about changes to the international student form. If it's just an address update, send us your name, your student number, and your updated arrival address, and we'd be happy to make that change for you. We usually will do it the same day that you send it to us. So just send that right on over and we'll get that fixed up. Are there any services for the Toronto campus under ILAC? Yes, there is someone named Zuhail who's assisting students at the Toronto campus. So please reach out to her via the ILAC website. We're happy to provide her direct contact information as well if you would like to email fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca. Ronell's asking a question about the fan card. So you pick up the fan card at the Oxford Street campus. And there is, when you open the copy of the presentation that I provided, there is a link to the fan card information. So you'll be able to upload your photo there and you can pick up your fan card right when you arrive in Canada. So can you cancel? So if you're canceling the shuttle service, again, you're going to want to do so at least 4 days prior to your arrival. This will just give us enough time to get that cancellation processed and we'll send you a new confirmation email. Another question. So question about fee payment. So the payment receipt that you're going to want to carry would be your statement from WebAdvisor. You can print that out before you travel, and that will show the payments that you've made to Fanshawe College, which is part of your overall resources for coming to Canada as a study permit holder. Kurthana is coming on April 17th, but the shuttle service is arranged for the 18th. So the reason that we can sometimes not provide a shuttle service on the date that a student lands is if they're landing too late in the evening. The last shuttle service leaves at 11:30 p.m. So if you are not arriving with enough time to clear immigration, you would need to book you on the shuttle service for the next morning, which leaves at 8:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you arrive early and we can get you through in time, we will move you on to the next available shuttle service. Can you get recordings? Again, this will be on our YouTube page. And I have 23 other messages here that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to get to, in addition to our friends that have their hands raised right now. So I do apologize for that, but I do need to end our session on time today, just so everyone can move on to our Fanshawe Cares live series if you're attending that session. What I would say is if you haven't had your question answered today, I do apologize. We want to make sure we answer all your questions thoughtfully. So please email fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca with any questions. We'll also be running this session again next Wednesday. So please do feel free to join us for that session, and we would be Happy to answer your questions again. I'll try to tighten up the presentation so that we have more time for questions. Again, the presentation link can be found here for the next session. I can't copy and paste it into the chat, but if you just go to this link and look under the orientation tab, you'll just need to click the link and you'll be able to join this session directly. Okay. So again, I'd just like to thank you all for joining me this morning. I know it's a very exciting time for all of you, and we're certainly excited to welcome you to Fanshawe. Please keep in touch. Let us know about any questions you have and know that we're here to support you. I hope you enjoy the Fanshawe Cares live session coming up at 9:30. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.